It's been said that the ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. The class, which is the ruling material force of society, is at the same time its ruling intellectual force. Or the class which has the means of material production at its disposal also has control over the means of mental production. You are here today to learn how to change that. Not through open revolution, but by slowly and incrementally taking apart and reassembling the past. Short-circuiting it, rewiring it, making it conform. And don't worry, you're in good hands.
The world had changed, slowly, and then with such terrible speed. It wasn't just natural disasters anymore. It was as if nature itself had become the disaster. There was no post-apocalyptic future like the storybooks promised. There was nothing romantic about it. Out of the chaos and disorder, splinter groups emerged. Utopian, at first. They'd figured out a way to replace the bad with the good, to remove the original and supplant it with a duplicate, to cleanse history of its faults, a new kind of politics, a new kind of power. They insinuated themselves into everyday life. Their symbols began to appear, scattered at first, and then on banners. They recruited us out in the open, in greenhouses and meadows. And by the time we knew what was happening, it was almost too late. Until one of us resisted.
They took you to the first house, and then later to the second. By the time they removed you to the third house, you knew the process was underway. Each house presented its own puzzles, its own terrors. They tried to make the windows thick enough to obscure the sound of the drones, but you could always hear them. The distant, mosquito-like hum as they passed through the sky. They said that you could distinguish between ours and theirs by the texture of the sound, but in truth, the drones were all the same. They were all ours.
You've come a long way. Tell me, what do you remember?
It's too soon for that.
Take your time. You know there are other ways.
I've seen the other ways. I invented them.
Perfected, at least.
Right. I forgot. You're the inventor. I'm the perfecter.
So, let's try it again. You've come a long way. What do you remember?
Maybe they should have called us something stronger. Something that captured the violence that we visited on others. The beauty of violence. The beauty of the world in fragments falling apart. That was the problem. Everything hinged on that. The godforsaken beauty of it all. Of burning fields and houses. The removals. Ha! If I tried to stem the violence and in doing so only made it worse, what then? How do you reckon that? Villains and heroes? On which side of history do I fall?
Well, the reports I'm getting from my agents, they all say we need a cone filter that can handle an extreme amount of flaring.
And how many sequences?
Iterations, and at least 5.
Well, we can make this fit inside a cone. Want me to show you? So how many would you need?
At least 2 dozen by Monday.
Well, the parameters are set. This is how we begin.
How many of us are there? I am writing this from the second house. I don't want to go to the third. I've been there before many times. Not the same third house, but one just like it. I've seen what goes on in that house behind its walls. And because I've seen they keep cycling me through the circuit, that's my theory, at least, for why I always find myself back here at the second house, dreading the third. The beauty of spilled blood. How do you explain that after the fact? How do you explain that somehow they made it beautiful, like abstract art, important and indecipherable? I was there. I saw it. I did it. My hands were soaked. I removed them all right. I helped nudge history forward one fucking removal at a time. It was neither pure romance nor pure butchery. It was something in between.
When did you grab him?
Yesterday, a Street View pickup. It was easy once he saw Catherine in the back seat.
And he is?
A writer. The fair doctrine crowd. Small journals mostly. Theory. Distributing flyers again.
They think if they do it in analog, we won't notice. Who else has he named?
Just 3. But we know there's at least a dozen. You know he's implicated certain people. This one has. People you know.
There's no need to say it. I'll find out sooner or later.
At some point, I came to believe that our training had one purpose only: to make us unsuitable for the very sort of new world we were helping to build. A world of image analysis depots and data silos buried deep in the earth. In the science fiction stories of my childhood, everything happened in outer space, on different planets. But it turns out that the future happens as it's happening. Right now. The future. My future. Mason's future.
So, you've made it this far.
And this basically is just a chance for you to meet each other.
And for us to look out at you, to see your faces, to see them in the flesh and remember them.
And also for us to give you the final packets. The old analog way, this is the first and last time we'll be meeting like this. You will each be concentrating on different bits at different times.
There won't be any danger at first.
You won't even need protection at the beginning.
Later, of course, you'll need much more than we can offer.
But you know that already. What we want to stress is that it's okay to be open about it at the beginning.
Yeah, we encourage you to tell people what you're doing at the beginning. No one will believe you, but later, when they hear talk of it from other places, they'll remember what you said.
That's the sort of fear we want.
In this sort.
These training sessions, as if we need them.
Maybe we do.
I didn't think I could do it at first,
And then you saw.
that I was capable.
How many times before that happened?
2. The second time.
It wasn't that easy for me.
Oh, it's never easy. How many times?
Too many. But by the 8th time, I was ready. And even then, I felt something. A twinge.
The blood?
Not the blood. The sound they make when you first do it.
That part's hard for me, too. Where are they sending you next?
Back to my hometown. An old friend that's gone too far and written too many things. I think it's a test.
It's the first time you've removed someone you know.
Not the first, but the first one that matters. The first one I care about.
Oh, she wrote that one too. Yeah, but under a different name. The argument's still the same. Yeah, once she goes, there'll be a lot of noise that won't make its way to the surface for a while. Well, that's the sort of delayed reaction we need. No, not tomorrow. Yeah, let's wait a week. Well, by then she'll be in, Omaha. God, Omaha. Yeah, wait until then. I'll send you the details. And let's keep this one soft. Yeah, let word spread through the network. Oh, they'll write about her. The brave ones. The ones with nothing to lose. Well, then we'll remove them too. Who, Crane? The one-armed man? Well, it's about time. Well, he'll be at, let me see. Well, he'll be at that convention in March. Yeah, we should do it there. And let's bring Mason in on this one. Yeah, after these two, we should take it easy for a while. Right. And if that happens, we'll kill it all.
The pageantry. The rituals. We had tried to invent new ones to replace the old ones. I surveyed the old ways, one last time. I wanted to remember it, moment by moment. I wanted the images to burn themselves into my skin, wanted the sounds to flood my brain, wanted the colors to drain themselves into me. For those moments, I couldn't even think about Mason and his doomed project. It was just me, and there was no filter between me and the world. Some of us had volunteered out of sorrow or out of revenge. We had all lost something. There was desire to give ourselves over to a purpose so much vaster than our individual grief.
You're going to have to master a few simple rules if you want to come in.
Who said anything about wanting?
Well, if not want, then what?
You know.
The architecture. Is that it? So deeply embedded? Maybe your problem is realizing it was already there.
You talk like it's something you just found.
Didn't we?
We?
I.
And did you find it or make it?
I made it.
Then refined it.
Right.
The type of ceramic. It wasn't old enough. You made it look ancient, but it wasn't.
No one cared about that.
Except me.
Except you.
How many sequences?
Iterations.
How many iterations?
Mason. Now we're getting to where we can't go back.
How many iterations until you got the perfect one?
It's never about finding the right formula, you see. That's the difference now.
But the objective is
If
always
you
been...
want me to say it, let me say it clearly and without interruption. You never understood the difference, Mason. Which is why you're here right now. The difference between making people afraid and making people think they're afraid.
There is no difference.
There's all the difference in the world. Isn't a false memory still a memory? It doesn't matter if it's true or false. What matters is if you want to come in.
Want?
You've been on the right side until recently. I shouldn't say this, but even if you come in, it won't save you.
Christ, you talk like it's a religion.
It's never been that.
You want to see something? Here.
The removal of what? Authenticity itself? The texture of the real? It sounds impossible, but it's what we, were after. To remove it, and then to reconstruct it. To reconstruct it so carefully that no one would notice, down to every last detail. To remake every gesture, every glance, to time every movement so that it corresponds precisely with what's being copied. And in doing so, to remove any trace of what was. I gathered my props, my tools, to do over the woman at the greenhouse, to get it close, but not too close. I relied on memory, not images, to overwrite the original I only needed to approximate it. To meet the past, not in the past, but in the present. Yet in order to do that, I had to go back to where it all began. I brought the props, as near as I could remember them. I played the woman who gave us our instructions and reassembled the greenhouse as close as possible to the original. I hired them. The extras, including a rough version of me and Mason, like a recording over a VHS tape from the analog days. That was the idea I'd stolen. And so, once they took their places, we began. Can you recreate the moment when you fall in love? So, you've made it this far.
And this is just basically a chance for you all to meet each other.
And for us to look out at you, to see your faces, to see them in the flesh, and remember them.
It's also a chance for us to give out the final packets, the old analog way. And this is the first and last time that we will meet like this. You will each be concentrating on different bits at different times.
There won't be any danger at first.
And you won't need protection in the beginning.
Later, of course, you'll need much more than we can offer.
But you already know about that. The thing that we want to stress to you is that it's okay to be open about it at first.
We encourage you to tell people what you're doing in the beginning. No one will believe you. But later, when they hear talk of it from other places, they'll remember what you said.
And that is the kind of fear that we want.
And this sort.
This is the one.
How many cone filters?
3. That's what surprised us. It didn't take so many.
As if the oxidation itself.
Was just naturally occurring.
And the membrane?
Uncompromised for now. A little flaring at the edges, but we've seen that before.
Okay, let's do it again.
Cut it off, it's too hot. 10.
I like your hometown.
I told you it was homey.
Things were so serious at the greenhouse.
God, I know. You probably thought I was a self-absorbed bore.
No, not at all. I thought you were funny. The way you imitated that woman.
The one who followed us around the second night?
She was really something. Did she think we didn't notice?
I don't know. It's strange to be back.
Have you done it yet?
Yesterday. It was easy. I mean, I wanted it to be easy, but after it was over, I wish it had been more difficult. Do you ever feel that way?
No. Not anymore. But I remember the feeling. Did you know I wrote the first slogans?
You did? Which ones?
We are all more or less aware of the road traveled. And the only justification for thinking is that it accelerates a terminal process.
I remember those. They don't need slogans anymore, do they?
No, not for a while they haven't. Is it still a revolution if no one notices it's happening? Well, your hometown.
Those guys look like they stepped out of a Brando movie.
Well, do you think it was?
What?
You know.
If it was different than the others. I've never seen one like it.
Unless it was for show. It didn't look real.
The way he just went down with no fight.
It seemed rehearsed.
For show for who? Us?
Let's assume the worst. Let's assume it was for us.
The revolution eats its own children.
Maybe now's a good time to talk about house number 3.
It's never a good time to talk about house number 3. Or what's beneath it.
I don't think it can hear you.
You know better than that. He'd kill us if he got the chance.
The Conversation. His best movie.
It's almost as if
We're removing that scene.
it sounds real.
As it should.
Parallel structures. After restaging the bar scene, we restaged the outdoor scene.
Rehearsed for who though? Bronson couldn't have known we would be there. That bar at that moment. Could he?
Let's assume it was for us. Let's assume the worst.
The revolution devours its own children.
Maybe now's a good time to talk about house number 3.
He'd kill us if he found out.
The Conversation.
It's almost like we're removing it.
That scene.
I'm the one telling this story. The one who has to describe what happens in the 3rd house. But history's never that simple. It's hard to tame. We cage it, and it breaks free. We borrowed the idea of parallel structures from the fascists. An outsider party that wants to claim power sets up organizations that replicate culture itself. Government agencies, museums, sports teams. You create doubles of these things over time. Make them more useful than the originals, and then, gradually, replace those originals.
These meetings used to intimidate me.
Not anymore, huh?
I like the way we do it out in the open now.
What's there to hide these days?
Some would say that's a problem.
We've moved beyond infrastructure. It's time for spectacle. There's no need for secrecy.
That's what you came here to tell me?
Mostly.
It's a long way to come to deliver old news.
You don't think it's true?
I think you can only take away so much before it's all gone.
That's always been the plan. So, the files. Just these two?
Just those two.
And you're certain?
What's certain these days? Yes, I'm certain.
Now remember, just try to forget that it's happening and go with it as it unfolds.
I like your hometown.
Told you it was homey.
Things were so serious at the greenhouse.
Do you think I was a self-important bore?
No. I thought you were funny. The way you imitated that woman.
Oh, the one who was following us around?
She was something else. Did she not think we noticed?
I don't know. It's really difficult being back here.
Have you gone through with it yet?
Yesterday, it was easier than I thought.
Did you know that I wrote the first slogans?
Really? Which ones?
The song and the only justification.
I remember those. They don't really need slogans anymore, do they?
No, not for a while now. Is it still a revolution if no one notices it's happening? Your hometown.
This guy's look like we walked out of a Marlon Brando movie from the 1950s.
We need to talk about the cones.
We need to talk about a lot of things. You got me here?
No, not now, not today. You need to tell me how they're functioning.
You already know, or else we wouldn't be talking right now.
It's your job to tell me. I read your report and it was ambiguous. That's why we're talking face to face.
Screen to screen? The curse of high definition. All right, what was it? The regime of the pure image always equals pure terror. Didn't you write that?
Now we're getting somewhere. You would say the cones are fulfilling their function?
I would say so.
The ratios are on target?
It appears to be. Between the removals and the disappearances, it's about 2 to 3. I assume you'd like to close the gap.
Yeah, that's the idea. And they're all switched on. I got the impression from your report that only some were.
Switched on? That's one way of saying it. Yes, they're all active.
And Bronson?
You'd have to ask him.
I'm asking you.
Bronson has instructed me to do things.
You mean I instructed Bronson to instruct you to do things?
And so he has.
Who was it that said humans were the only endangered species that no one would acknowledge as endangered? The vertigo of a final solution.
And here I thought we were talking about the cones.
We are.
So this is where they got you now. A dungeon.
Yeah, doing the devil's work.
Yeah. Don't you feel cut off down here?
Felt cut off out there too. There's no difference.
Still.
I know it's hard for you to imagine.
Well, I can imagine it. I just can't understand it.
Just give it time. You'll get acclimated.
Now, you think so? So, what about inside the cage?
Same as out here. There's no difference. It's the same air.
You ever sleep in there?
That's a funny question. If I open it now...
I'll know you've seen it.
You want to know I've seen it?
I'll know anyway.
Before you leave, I mean.
It doesn't matter. Open it now if you want. Or are you afraid you'll find a picture of yourself in there?
And if I do, will you be involved?
We're all involved. Show me the inside.
The inside. There's thousands.
Well, don't worry. I don't want to see any of them.
Well, let's talk about the files you brought. Ones you brought here today.
Well, you haven't even opened it yet.
You have.
I have.
And you brought it here yourself.
You know that I did. Are the first pictures still in there?
I haven't seen them.
Since... Go to the back and stay there. The revolution always eats its young. Stay put.
I sent a signal to Bronson, the old analog way. We had become part of a gigantic process too vast to see, but you could feel it. So familiar, it had become unfamiliar. It's as if cause and effect had become reversed. Bronson would see, not because I had placed it there, but rather, I placed it there because he saw it. Like I said, it was Mason who finally took the ideological plunge, who put his hand in the thresher, who loosened the heavy blade. This was near the end.
Go ahead, Mason. You see it? You see it there?
It's there. But it's different. It looks different.
How?
Smaller. I don't know.
Because you're far away. You have to get closer.
I am getting closer. It's not getting bigger. I want to get a replacement.
You can't. You know you can't. That's not a question. That's not a question you should ask.
It wasn't a question.
You've come a long way. Tell me, what do you remember?
I've seen many things that you wouldn't understand.
Tell me anyway.
But you sent me to do these things, to remove them.
Of course I did. I know I did. And you removed them well.
I removed them well. Did I?
The old symbol, Mason. Remember it?
That's what you call it? The drones are everywhere. They fill everything. I'm going to the third house.
You look pixelated.
I feel pixelated.
So, what wouldn't I understand?
About?
The things you've seen.
Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the third house.
Okay.
Do you remember the tract about the illusory revolution? All that jargon, the parliamentary representatives, the society of the spectacle, the interventionists, the cone filters, the removers.
I remember the tracks, stapled together like zines, as if somehow they made them real.
It was too romantic, but it worked.
Mason, there's no need to go to the third house.
Yeah. How did we come up with that?
With what?
The numbering system. House 1, House 2, House 3.
I always like to think we nicked it from the Three Little Pigs. Mason, I think you should turn around and go back.
To what?
There's still work to be done. There's Catherine.
You're so fucking disembodied. You're up there, and you're not up there.
I don't see you in real time, you know. There's a 10-second delay.
For the signals to do their dirty work.
We worked up an algorithm to compensate for the time delay. That brings it down from around 15 to 10 seconds.
But still, that's an eternity.
So, Mason, back to the same old question. What do you remember?
This. I remember this.
Exactly?
Not exactly. The angle was different. I approached it from over there.
And the difference is...
The door. I remember it being red.
And what else?
It seemed larger. Something about this trajectory feels off, even though it's closer to the original. It's coming back to me now. Are you sure this is the same house number 3?
Well, there's only one. What do you mean, feels off?
Ten seconds off. Spooky action at a distance.
Einstein's theory?
Not his theory. And what if it applied to humans?
Well, what if it did?
Spooky action. Entanglement.
It doesn't. It can't. It's quantum. Reality behaves differently at that level.
Catherine.
Mason, it's time to go inside. You've come a long way. Tell me, what do you remember?
This. All of this. The filters. How many of them? How many sequences?
Iterations.
How many iterations?
Thousands. Tens of thousands.
Ceramic and metallic.
So what else do you remember? What's different?
Wasn't there a hole here?
Where?
Here, where I'm standing.
I can't see where you're standing. I can't see you inside. I can only hear you.
Who are these Polaroids of?
What Polaroids?
In the files on the desk that I'm holding in my hands. The pages inside with the Polaroids affixed. Who are they of?
There are no Polaroids affixed to the pages.
I'm looking at it now.
At what?
The hole. Or I'm sitting at the desk going through the files with the Polaroids. Or I'm inspecting the cones.
It's true. You could be doing any of those things. Or none of them.
How do you measure the success of a revolution? Is it by the accumulated number of bodies?
There were no bodies.
No. Just thousands of files of pictures of people who disappeared.
People don't disappear.
Something happens to them first.
Something.
In the beginning, we vowed not to use euphemisms.
But we realize that every word is a euphemism. Language is a euphemism. It can't get close to describing reality as the way it really is.
Especially reality soaked in blood.
You're a good linguist, but a lousy philosopher. Where are you?
Where are you? I'm sitting at the desk, going through the files with no Polaroids in them.
It doesn't sound like you're sitting at a desk.
Oh? No? How does it?
An echo. There's an echo.
A time delay.
Not a time delay, an echo.
You hear my voice twice.
Right.
The first time is tragedy, the second time is farce.
Reverse that in your case.
The revolution devours its own children.
I've heard that before. Catherine said it to you. And you said it to the accountant. Mason, I told you it wouldn't end well. I'm sorry. Stay where you are, at the desk.
And?
It'll just be easier that way.
For which one of us?
They'll be there in less than an hour. If you try to leave the house, I'll see you.
Casey?
What?
Casey. Is Casey coming?
There is no Casey.
You keep telling yourself that.
Greater than, lesser than, greater than, lesser than, greater than. Signifiers detached from what they were supposed to signify. Empty symbols with no meaning. That's what the removals finally accomplished. Draining the meaning from things. Fragments. Repetition. They took you to the first house, and then later to the second. By the time they removed you to the third house, you knew the process was underway.